I have never seen Donald Trump more humiliated than he was by New York City Mayor-elect Zohran Mamdani. Mamdani didn't just defang and dismantle Trump to his face. He mocked him, forced him to back down, and then embarrassed him publicly. It was so brutal and so expertly executed that when Fox wrapped up their coverage, even they looked stunned and admitted that Trump had been completely played. We're going to break it all down. But before we do, if you could quickly leave a like on this video, and if you haven't already, hit that subscribe button. It really helps support our work. Now, before we get to Trump humiliating himself, Mamdani outmaneuvering him, and Fox reacting in disbelief, I want to begin with what Mamdani said just a few days ago about how he prepared for this moment.
Do you think a lot of people go into meetings with Donald Trump, I think, thinking they're going to be the one to get over on him. And I sometimes often think, I've watched this now for 10 years, they screw up because they think they underestimate him. Like, what is your goal for a meeting with Donald Trump? What do you want to come out of a meeting with Donald Trump?
I want to just speak plainly to the president about what it means to actually stand up for New Yorkers and the way in which New Yorkers are struggling to afford this city. And frankly, cost of living is something that I heard time and time again from New Yorkers about why they voted for Donald Trump. And this is something that is only continued in the last few months of this year, where we're hearing about childcare concerns, rent concerns, Con Ed concerns, even just getting on the bus just $2.90. And just to make it clear to the president that this is what we're talking about, these are the stakes for New Yorkers and their ability to keep calling this city their home.
Mamdani approached this Oval Office meeting the same way figures like Mark Carney or President Zelensky have in the past, fully aware that Donald Trump's tough guy routine is an act. They understand that if you push back just enough and charm him in the right places, he turns into putty in your hands. And that is exactly what happened here. It's especially funny considering how Trump typically talks about Mamdani. His latest rant about him on Truth Social gives us the perfect context before we look at how he actually behaved once they were face to face in the meeting.
I looked at the polls, and looks like we're going to have a communist as the mayor of New York. It'll be very interesting. But here's the good news. He's got to go through the White House. Everything goes through the White House, at least this White House it does, and we'll have to see what happens. But if he dropped out, he's not going to win, and not looking too good for Cuomo either. But maybe, I don't know, if he dropped out, maybe Cuomo would have a little bit of a chance, but not much.
Trump recently wrote on Truth Social, self-proclaimed New York City communist Zohran Mamdani, who was running for mayor. This was before he won. Will prove to be one of the best things to ever happen to our great Republican Party. He is going to have problems with Washington like no mayor in the history of our once great city. Remember, he needs the money from me as president in order to fulfill all his fake communist promises. He won't be getting any of it. So what's the point of voting for him? Donald Trump insisted there would be no funding for New York and claimed he would do everything in his power to block Mamdani. And yet, what actually happened today? First, the White House shut out the press. Reporters weren't allowed to watch the one-on-one exchange inside the meeting. And I know exactly why. Trump was about to be completely charmed and would fold instantly. And that's exactly what happened. Because the moment Trump was asked whether he planned to help Mamdani, he caved, right before Mamdani openly mocked him to his face.
Well, I think if we didn't get along, whether it's cut off or just make it a little bit difficult or not give as much, we want to see, I use the term, we don't want good money going after bad, and we don't want that to happen. I don't think that's going to happen. I did say that, subject to what policies are being set. We had a meeting today that actually surprised me. He wants to see no crime. He wants to see housing being built. He wants to see rents coming down, all things that I agree with. Now, we may disagree how we get there. The rent coming down, I think one of the things I really gleaned very much today, he'd like to see him come down, ideally, by building a lot of additional housing. Yeah. That's the ultimate way. He agrees with that, and so do I. But if I read the newspapers and the stories, I don't hear that. But I heard him say it today, and I think that's a very positive step. No, I don't expect. I expect to be helping him, not hurting him. A big help, because I want New York City to be great. Look, I love New York City. It's where I come from. I spent a lot of years there. Now I'm right here. We took a big setback with the mayor that we had, Dave de Blasio. I thought it was a tremendous setback for the city. I think this mayor can do some things that are going to be really great.
Just 24 hours ago, they were calling this man communist scum. Carolyn Levitt was melting down, ranting about how outrageous it was that Democrats elected him mayor of the largest city in America. She was practically in tears. Trump himself was furious. And now, suddenly, Trump adores him. Now he's saying, of course I'm going to help him. He was great. And it only got more ridiculous from there. I'm going to play a few clips. You'll want to see them all. Watching Trump get completely outmaneuvered, psychologically picked apart, and thoroughly deflated is genuinely hilarious, especially because Mamdani is mocking him right to his face, and Trump doesn't even realize it.
Mr. President, you say you love New York City. Mr. Mamdani, does New York City love President Trump?
New York City loves a future that is affordable, and I can tell you that there were more New Yorkers who voted for President Trump in the most recent presidential election because of that focus on cost of living, and I'm looking forward to working together to deliver on that affordability agenda.
I got a lot of votes. One more. Go ahead.
Of course, New York City despises Donald Trump. He only got votes there because millions of people live in the city, not because anyone actually likes him. But naturally, Mamdani isn't going to say that out loud. He knows he's playing Trump. We know he's mocking Trump, and we can clearly see Trump folding under it, and fold he did. When he was pressed about ICE, he gave exactly the response Mamdani wanted.
Send federal troops to New York City. You both have differences when it comes to ICE agents in New York City. Mr. Mamdani, you called ICE a rogue government entity. I wonder how you reconcile your differences on both of those issues.
Well, I think we're going to work them out, and I think that if we have known murderers and known drug dealers and some very bad people, we want to get them out. And the mayor wants to have peace. We discussed this at great length, actually, maybe more than anything else. He wants to have a safe New York. Ultimately, a safe New York is going to be a great New York. If it's not safe, no matter how well we do with pricing and with anything else, we can talk about anything you want. If you don't have safe streets, it's not going to be a success. So we're going to work together. We're going to make sure that if there are horrible people there, we want to get them out. I think he wants to get them out maybe more than I do. So we'll work together. We discussed it at great length.
So Donald Trump, who just claimed he was going to flood New York streets with masked ICE agents, is now backing off completely. And yes, everyone agrees criminals should be held accountable. Starting with the man in the Oval Office who was sitting in that chair when Trump made that statement. Yes, that would be Donald Trump himself. But Mamdani had already made it clear. There will be no illegal ICE invasion of the city, no masked agents, no racial profiling. And Trump, instantly, effortlessly charmed, just folded. Okay, great. Sounds good. We're not going to let it happen, he said. Immediate capitulation. And it wasn't just ICE. One of the main talking points used against Mamdani during the campaign was his insistence that working people should actually be able to afford to live in New York City. Shocking, right? A radical concept. The billionaire class acted like asking them to pay 2% more in taxes was the end of civilization. The sky was falling. The rich would flee. New York would collapse. None of that happened. In fact, billionaires are the ones now bending the knee. One of them has already capitulated to Mayor-elect Zohran Mamdani and had this to say.
How about you? Go ahead, please.
You're a billionaire. You have a different address nowadays than you used to. But you used to call New York City home. Would you feel comfortable living in New York City under a Mamdani administration?
Yeah, I would. I really would. Especially after the meeting. Absolutely.
What makes you comfortable?
We agree on a lot more than I would have thought. I think I want him to do a great job, and we'll help him do a great job. He may have different views, but in many ways, we were discussing when Bernie Sanders was out of the race, I picked up a lot of his votes, and people had no idea because he was strong on not getting ripped off in trade and lots of the things that I've practiced and been very successful on. Tariffs, a lot of things. Bernie Sanders and I agreed on much more than people thought. And when he was put out of the race, I think quite unfairly, if you want to know the truth, many of the Bernie Sanders voters voted for me. And I felt very comfortable, frankly, in seeing that and saying that. And, you know, it just turned out to be a statistical truth. But no, I feel very comfortable. I would feel very, very comfortable being in New York, and I think much more so after the meeting. Yes, please.
So Trump, who constantly claims that New York is a disaster, falling apart, and a hellhole, suddenly flips and says, "Oh, this guy's great, I'm on board." He completely got played. Honestly, it's almost comical. Trump turned into this little obedient creature, totally charmed by Mamdani. It's funny, it's absurd, and it's a little scary because this is exactly how skilled leaders and diplomats around the world manipulate powerful figures. A pat on the back, a small reward, and suddenly they excuse or overlook major issues. Mamdani, of course, is using his charm strategically. He's acting like the capable, grounded politician that he is, and Trump, caught off guard, has no choice but to react positively. Mamdani's skill isn't for personal gain. It's for working people, not to prop up a brutal regime like previous administrations where Trump was just performing little dances and handshakes for political cronies. And Mamdani didn't hold back at all, especially when asked about Israel and the ongoing human rights abuses there. Here's what he had to say.
And you did a piece in all the 9 months around the world. I would like to ask Mr. Mamdani, you've accused the U.S. government of committing genocide in Gaza while President Trump was working on peace. Why that?
I've spoken about the Israeli government committing genocide, and I've spoken about our government funding it. And I shared with the president in our meeting about the concern that many New Yorkers have of wanting their tax dollars to go towards the benefit of New Yorkers and their ability to afford basic dignity. And what we see right now is we're in the 9th consecutive year of more than 100,000 school children being homeless in our city. And there's a desperate need not only for the following of human rights, but also the following through on the promises we've made New Yorkers. And I appreciated the meeting we had and the work that we can do.
Do you agree that President Trump did do a peace and work hard to make the peace? Because he worked hard to do the peace in the Middle East and everywhere. Do you agree with that?
I appreciate all efforts towards peace, and I shared with President Trump that when I spoke to Trump voters on Hillside Avenue, including one of whom was a pharmacist that spoke about how President Trump's father actually went to that pharmacy not too far from Jamaica Estates, that people were tired of seeing our tax dollars fund endless wars. And I also believe that we have to follow through on the international human rights, and I know that still today those are being violated, and that continues to be work that has to be done no matter where we're speaking of.
Mr. President.
Mamdani didn't hold back, and of course he wouldn't, because he's authentic, genuine, and truly cares. While doing all of that, he completely outmaneuvered Donald Trump. By the end of it, even Fox commentators were openly mocking Trump. Just listen to Brian Kilmeade's reaction.
Live from Washington, D.C., that's what we just watched. Now I'm in New York City. We were watching that press conference. I think J.D. Vance is jealous. I think the president wants to use him as a running mate. They really got along fantastic. Hi, everyone. I'm Brian Kilmeade, lucky enough to fill in for Will Cain. You just saw it, President Trump and New York City Mayor-elect Zohran Mamdani.
Anyone who's followed this show knows I've been a big supporter of Mamdani since early this year. I first started talking about him around February, and we even did an interview with him in early March. He's the kind of leader we should be modeling much of our politics after, not just because he's joyful and genuinely likable, but because he brings an aspirational vision that politics can be better, that it can inspire people, and that it can even charm someone as notoriously difficult as Donald Trump. If Mamdani can get him to respond that way, imagine what the Democratic Party could achieve by presenting this kind of positive vision to voters. That's why we need more leaders like Mamdani. We'll continue talking about him on the show, and if you want to support this work, hit the subscribe button, leave a like on this video, and if you've watched to the end, drop a blue heart in the comments. And until next time, I will see you soon.